So yeah, good morning. I woke up earlier and I was supposed to do like some morning yoga just to chillax and clear my head. But really what I ended up doing was I just got nervous, and then I just looked at more like burger pictures on like, oh, how to potentially style things, when it's really stupid, because I feel like I just want to get to the point where like I don't know why things make me nervous. Like you've done it before. Like, why are you nervous? I don't really sleep that well the night before because I'm just like, okay, like I have to, get to the station, I have to do this by a certain time, I have to whatever, like, like did I make sure to bring skewers and everything? And yeah, I really end up psyching myself out, and then it becomes like really, really stupid. But I'll tell you guys what we're gonna do today. Okay, so I packed some stuff. I think that they already have most everything there, but I just thought maybe just pack some stuff. So just some brushes, some tweezers, like basic stuff, pipettes for sauces, parchment paper because I know that maybe I want to be styling with that and I don't know if they have that color. Sponges, toothpicks, some pins, some tubes of stuff. So I have some glycerin in that. Maybe I need some water in case if I want to spritz something and make it, I don't know, nice. More squirt bottles, I don't know. Probably don't need all of this. Actually, I know I don't need all of this, but might as well.
Casey, I don't wanna fall in love. Thought I had the time, but it's just not enough. Oh, I don't tend to give no trust like that. Oh, I stay adamant with the same things, but I still hit her up in my daydreams.
Alright, so I just arrived. It seems to be a fairly residential, it's like a pretty quiet area. It's like 20 minutes early, so that's good. I have time to kind of walk around, think about, what I'm gonna do and stuff. I think my big rule is arrive early enough so that if there was like a really big accident, like I had to go to the bathroom, maybe I took the wrong stop or something, that I can still recover from that, so that's good. Yeah, so what we're gonna do today is they told me that we were gonna style a burger shot first, which is interesting because I don't always make burgers, but we're gonna do a burger shot, and then afterwards we're gonna do this thing called a tension shot, where essentially you're holding the burger. So pretty much been researching, like I mean, I've seen burgers all the time, but just like hundreds of pictures of burgers, so just to make sure that I have the kind of like the kind style that I want to do. So there's a person passing by. Yeah, so I've just spent like a lot of time just researching like different kinds of burgers and how to hold it and how to style it, and just things to put around it. So I think we're good on that. And then afterwards, I don't know, this part's a little bit unclear. It's like a meal kit kind of a company, so I'm supposed to pick 2 recipes, I think, maybe like one of the steps or 2 of the steps, and then photograph that, so I'm not sure about that. And then afterwards I'm supposed to pitch an idea to their social media team on, I guess, like one of their dishes. So yeah, I don't know, that should be interesting too. So I'm gonna go in, if I can get some shots. This is really stupid. I think vlogging about this has made me less nervous anytime I have an interview, but yeah, so I'm gonna go in. If I can, I'll get some shots. If not, I won't, and then I'll meet you guys back probably out here when everything's done. So it should be like a couple of hours though. Okay, all right, wish me luck.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I stay adamant with the same things, but I still hit her up in my...
All right, so I just finished the interview. It's around 1:30, so the whole thing took about 3 hours. I thought it went really well. Like the photo turned out really, like the burger turned out amazing. I thought it looked really good, but I didn't end up taking like too many photos in there, and obviously I didn't really end up taking any clips at all because I was afraid of like not wanting to do that during an interview. So, but I think I know what I want to do. Okay, so I thought because I wasn't able to take you guys inside and I wasn't brave enough to take too many photos and too many videos during the interview, that I would redo what I had to do there for you guys here, just with the stuff that I have. Obviously it was a like a normal carnivore burger shoot, but we'll kind of recreate with what I have here, just to go full like step by step. Like if you all ever have like an interview and that includes a practical interview of going in and actually like styling for somebody, the first thing that I actually did was I asked them, actually. I was like, yeah, is there anything that you could prepare me on, like, you know, could you give me like the recipes for the day that you plan on having me shoot? And I think that that's really important, because some people, like, if you don't ask, then you don't know like what to prepare for. So, you know, like you could ask and then they could be like, oh, you know, like we kind of want to, you know, really see you on your feet. In which case, like, that's fine. But at least you need to know to ask first, because that will prepare you loads. So when I found out, I mean, sometimes it was a bit vague, but when I found out that the main shot was going to be a burger shot, I was just like, like, because this company tends to do like a lot of like bowls. So it could be like Buddha bowls, like, you know, spaghetti, a lot of things. So I was quite surprised that they chose a burger. But at the same time, I think it was because burgers are kind of notoriously, like, they're harder to do. They will take longer, because usually a burger shot is going to be profiled. It's going to be from the side. You're going to want to see each and every layer. And so there is a longer process to building a burger and to making it pretty. So I think that's probably why they chose it. But when I found that out, the first thing that I did was I went on to Pinterest, I went on to Instagram, and I kind of found like all of the burger shots that there was. Like, I looked through hundreds of them, and I kind of picked the ones that I liked the feel of, that I wanted to go with. And let me see. Also to add is, somebody got me this book for Christmas last year of like how to, what is it, like how to fake it like an artist or something. Like, sometimes people are so caught up in like, oh, like that's copying somebody else, I can't do that, like whatever. The thing is, like, all artists, all creative people, they all copy from somebody else. Like, they just do. And sometimes like people don't tell you about it, but like everybody has, I think the word is inspiration. You get inspiration from everything else. And so, how do I say it? Like, it's not necessarily copying, but definitely when you're just starting out in food styling, number one tip is really take a look at a photo that you really like and like recreate it pound for pound, try it out. Like, see if you can do exactly what is in the picture. Like, I would say that that's like the best thing to do for practice. But really, like, what ends up happening usually is like food stylists, artists, like, they'll take a photo, they'll take a song, whatever, and then I want to mimic that photo, but like, let's say I don't have the plate that's in the photo, or like I don't have that specific, you know, lettuce, I don't have that specific like tablecloth. You end up using your own tablecloth, and then afterwards you're like, I've recreated the scene, like, let me just add like a soda can here, or like maybe a cup there, and you know, like, voila, boom, like now it's original. But I think the thing is like, that I want to say is like, just don't worry about that much. Like, literally everybody copies from everybody. Like, there is no original recipe out there. Like, you know, like, people take from other people, and it's not like that, but like, you take inspiration from other people, and then eventually, once you can recreate that original thing that you really liked, that's when you can grow. Like, that's, you know, to copy is to take that first step, but then after you're able to like master the copy, then you put in your own things. Then you're ready to, you know, like, do your own thing. So don't worry about it. So anyways, I looked through hundreds of burger photos. I also knew that they would be doing something called a tension shot, which was holding the burger. So it could be, you know, different ways, like you might be biting it or something. But it was one of those as well. And so I was comfortable with the burger shot, but then I wasn't too comfortable with the tension. So I really wanted to just see, exactly what I wanted to do. And so I had a couple of like shots in mind that I kind of like remembered. I was preparing for various things. So I was preparing for maybe like if they asked if I could just do, you know, like a profile side shot, but then I was also prepared for like, you know, like let's say they wanted, you know, a shot from up above, like how would I style it that way? So always in my head, I have a couple different ways of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to style. What do I want to do? Let me just take you exactly like through what I did. I mean, this is from, you know, Dr. Greger's cookbook, but you guys can see like this is kind of the type of shot that I'm talking about. Like usually for burgers, you know, you'll see it from the side because that is the best angle. That is the best angle for a burger. Okay, so when I went in, I did have a kitchen assistant as well, so that she could help me cook some of this stuff. Okay, let's go back. So I read through the recipe first, just to make sure that I knew where everything was going. I asked some questions if I needed to. So first off was I had the kitchen assistant deal with actually the burger patty. Not because, I mean, I guess I didn't want to have to deal with it, but that was also the part that I thought would be pretty standard, because I wanted to do kind of, I wanted to touch the things that I personally wanted my version of. So for example, like with French fries, like do you want pieces to be like, do you want like the big wedges? Do you want it to be thick fries, thin fries? You know, there's all of those things to consider. And so for me, like I knew that I kind of wanted thicker, but more towards like the square cut fries, as opposed to, you know, kind of like big wedges with rounded corners. And so I was preparing those, but then corner of my eye, and this is like when you have an assistant, it's almost like it's good, but then you also have to like look out and make sure that it is also the things that you want. And she did like an amazing job. But what I noticed was when she patted the burger patties down, it was, you know, super thin, but it was super flat as well. It was very much like what you would see in a grocery store. And so I went over, and what I did first was I was like, oh, okay, like actually I would like the patty to be a little bit thicker. And so what I did was I grabbed the bun that it was supposed to be on. So I just baked this one because I didn't have a burger bun with me, weirdo. So I grabbed the bun, and it was one of those that was already prepackaged. So it was kind of squished. I didn't really like it too much, but that bun gave me an idea of how big or small the burger patty needed to be. And of course, I know that, you know, meat will shrink a little bit, but frankly, it doesn't really, it's okay that it shrinks a little bit, because I can always cheat it. I can always move the patty like up. I know that we're only going to be shooting it from a certain angle, from a certain side, right? So it's okay that the meat, you know, shrinks a little bit. But what I was saying was that, like, let's fatten up the burger patty a little bit. And then what I ended up doing was I don't actually have a patty with me today, but I thought what I could do was, like, I would just mimic it with some, like, vegan tofu dogs. And then I have some bacon here as well. Yeah, we had to cook bacon too. And yeah, there was a lot of components, which I think is why, you know, I had to do it. So where was I? So what I ended up doing with the patty was I compressed it in a little bit, I fattened it up, and then I took my fingers and I just kind of like pinched the outsides, just so that there would be some rough texture to the meat itself. With food photography, food styling, really so much of it is about bringing the food to life. And when it's a 2D image, it's really hard. So how you bring certain images to life is you have to give it texture. Like if there's texture, give it texture. If there's shine, give it shine. If there's, you know, good contrast contrasts in color, you know, do that. Maybe some movement with sauce, even though it's not moving, but the sauce dripping is movement. So you're really trying to like paint like a moving 3D story, but in a 2D image. And the big thing is to just kind of make whatever subject you are styling, like to make it pop. Right? So that's what I did with the meat patty, and I'm so glad that I did it. So we fattened it up, and then we gave it some texture, and then we ended up pan frying it. I think, you know, my explanation was that, you know, when you make a patty that thin, obviously that's pretty standard. Like that's what a grocery store beef patty would look. But when you're making it yourself, you know, you want to make it look like, oh, well, like this is homemade, like this does look good. And you want to give it like a little bit of specialty that way. So we ended up pan frying that on both sides. I didn't know if I wanted the patty to be like slightly pink, although we weren't going to cut into it, but I didn't know if I wanted that. But the color ended up kind of going nuts, so it just ended up looking quite brown quite quickly anyways. But the one thing that I did do was I turned the patty after it was cooked on both sides onto its side, and I kind of like held it with tongs but also with my finger just so that I wouldn't break it, and to sear that edge too, because I knew it was actually going to be the edge that was going to be the most important because of that shot. You'd only be really seeing the edge of the patty. At the same time, like you don't want it to be burnt, right? So I have no idea whether like the middle is cooked at all. That was like not my concern, but it was really the outside. What I knew I was going to do later was, actually they had some Marmite, but sometimes like I'll reduce soy sauce or something and then get it thick and then paint it onto kind of a little bit of the patty so that it would give it shine. But also like if it ended up being like a really boring, like, you know, sometimes burgers and food end up looking like gray and like brown and it looks sad, especially if you need to style it and it stays in a certain place for a while and it cools down, then it starts kind of looking ugly. So it's kind of like last minute makeup touches to it. So I wasn't too worried about it not being too brown or anything, but I did want to make sure that there was some texture, there was some char, you know, just to make sure that the bun looked good. So we did that. The bacon, we had bacon too, pan fried it on one and then actually air fried it on another, and the air frying one worked just so much better. It got so much more crispy, it got hotter, and so the bacon actually, like the one in the air fryer, I just have this now, so the one in the air fryer turned out to be like much pinker. Like for some reason the ones that were on the pan, it like kind of stayed like white and pinkish all the time, and at the same time I didn't want to burn it, so I didn't want to leave it there too long. But the air fryer, you know, a good tip for the bacon, did actually really well. So yeah, those were kind of put on the sides first, so they would be kind of on hold for a little bit. And then I dealt with the fries, which I opted to do kind of more of this like straight cut for. I didn't want big wedges, but you have the option. Like you have to think that like for each component that you're going to do, you have choices. So, you know, like how do you want your bacon to look? Do you want it to have like that Denny's look where it's not completely like fried, or you know, like how do you want your burger to look? You know, like is it juicy? Do you want it to be like crispy? Like there are options for each one. So yeah, I cut up all of the fries. One of the things was like some of the end pieces I actually just ended up throwing away when like it was like end pieces like this I ended up throwing away. But what's actually really important that you have to remember is like just cook everything first. Like cook your good pieces, cook your bad pieces, because sometimes you want the illusion of having a really full plate of like French fries, and so you take like the ugly ones and then you stack the pretty ones on top of it. And so I kind of found myself like borderline where I just thought that I needed a little bit of fry, but actually I needed quite a bit of the fries. So with the French fries, it was actually rosemary fries with some like rock salt. I knew that rosemary, you know, can have a tendency to burn. It can look brown. I was going to do all of the fries in the air fryer as well. So I made sure to coat the fries and the rosemary with pretty much plenty of oil, but not too much. And I only added in probably like a small pinch of rosemary, just because I did want the look of some of the rosemary to be cooked, but I knew that a prettier shot would be actually fresh rosemary, which was still slightly green, chopped and then added at the very end. So like also a good tip is any ingredient that you cut up or that you have to prepare, you might want to actually save or like cut up a little bit more and then save some of that on the side, because depending on how you were planning to style it at the end, you might actually need some of those ingredients just to scatter or like, you know, to put in a ramekin on the side, just like depending on, you know, what your plan is. So put those in the air fryer. You have to remember to turn it all the time. And like, yeah, memory was actually a thing, because sometimes when I'm doing multiple things, it's really hard to know. But essentially what I had to do for the ketchup, I don't know if I have mayonnaise, but what I had to do for the ketchup was, this is not ketchup, this is barbecue sauce, but let's just keep it like that. Some mustard that is not shake. I do have another one. What I ended up doing for this dressing was, yeah, I probably need a little bit more. Hold on. Whatever, it's fine. So what I ended up, I knew that this sauce was going to be kind of important, because I knew that I had wanted to put it into a squirt bottle and then to kind of have it like ooze out from the side, because it had a really nice color to it, unlike this weird one that I'm making right now. What I ended up doing was, according to the recipe, it was like one part. But taking a look at it, I kind of wanted it to have like a cheesier look. It kind of looked a little bit yellow from the mustard. So that was when I just started like adjusting. Do I have ketchup? Again, at the same time, like you need to also, we'll go through an issue of it at the end, but you also need to like know the boundaries. Like sometimes when people are food styling, like you end up over promising, so you end up making food look like too good, and that's not good either, because obviously like if it's like a consumer product, like you want normal people to be able to recreate the final look, at least like somewhat close to it. And so if you end up making it like too unreal, or like you're at liberty and you add like a little too much ketchup, I knew that it wasn't going that way. But anyways, I knew that this sauce was going to be pretty important, because I knew the color that I wanted to go, and this is just gross. The last thing was actually the bun. So the bun didn't actually have sesame to it, but like honestly I couldn't really help myself. So it was one where it was uncut. So for me, I needed to first off think about, okay, like what ratio, like do I want the top of the bun to be actually quite high, quite fluffy? Like yes I do. And so like where to exactly cut that bun so that I would still get like a nice, somewhat thick bottom, but at the same time really err on having, you know, the top be, you know, like having a good relationship that way, good proportion that way, okay? The other thing that you have to start worrying about with a bun is, this didn't happen yesterday because that bun had like a nice sheen to it already, but if you can see like this bun, I did rub butter on it right before it baked, but this bun is actually it looks quite dry. So automatically when I look at it, I know that at the end, I want to paint it with just a little bit of oil. Sometimes oil can make things look super oily, and so you might want to like, you know, like especially with like fruits and vegetables, you might want to do it with like water. You might want to, sometimes people do like half glycerin, half water, and then you spritz it. But this, I feel like you could just paint it with like a little bit of oil, I've seen some people have like the pan, like the cooking spray, so that it's like a smaller amount and you can evenly distribute it onto the bread or whatever. And I find that that's probably a very useful tool as well. But yeah, like I would definitely paint this at the end just to give it like a nice, like a nice healthy, right out of the oven look to it, even though like this was out of the oven. And then the next thing that you need to consider when you're looking at a burger bun is like there's a good side to every food. Just like there's, you know, like a good, like a prettier side to people, there's definitely a side to food as well. And so what I ended up doing was I kind of like looked around for like kind of the look that I wanted. I did want like something to be thick. I wanted it to be like, you know, like a nice burger bun. So I decided on the side first. And so pretty much like I laid it the way that I would want it shown. Yeah, and so that was that. What I ended up doing was also I didn't know if I wanted like a toasted look to it. I mean, it was already toasted, but sometimes like toasting kind of like oomphs up things. It makes it look a little bit prettier. What I ended up doing, because it was already quite brown on one side, was I pan toasted just the white bit, just the inside bit. And the reason was because that bread was kind of brioche. It was so soft. And I knew that in a photo, I really wanted to stand up nice and tall. I didn't want it to squish down. And so that's why I ended up toasting both of the insides, not really the outside, just for a couple of minutes. And it wouldn't have been a big deal if I had burned it on the inside, because it would just be, you know, really to kind of harden up the bread. Okay, so I just got some oil. I'm gonna just paint a little bit of the bun for you guys first, so that you can see like kind of the difference in how it would look. I mean, eventually you have to think about the photography bit as well. So there's the lighting, right? And so you're gonna get a side where it's going to hit the light, it's going to, you know, have some highlights. Okay, so, you know, that's the healthy bun. And then, you know, obviously like compared to this side, it's going to be, you know, really like a lot drier. So yeah, part of it is just, you know, just playing around with it. You don't want to get it like too oily, but especially with bread will just kind of absorb that oil. I think usually in general, if you don't do too much of it, it's going to be okay. But oil is also going to be a pretty good friend in like the bacon as well. Like you might want to brush over a dry beef patty a little bit with oil. I mean, there's a bunch of things that people brush things with to make it kind of shiny, to make it come back to life. But I think like oil is a pretty good thing. Let's see. So then the next thing, I mean, with the fries, so they were in the oven and then they were done. But with the fries, I knew that fries have a tendency to just like look dead after they sit out for a while. So I knew right before I headed into the actual studio to finish up the styling, I wanted to stick it back into the air fryer for, you know, just about like a minute, 2 minutes, just to, you know, get it crispy again, get it like normal, good looking. So the next thing was the lettuce. This is not a lettuce, this is chard, because I don't really eat lettuce. So we use the lettuce wedges, but then the outside of the lettuce, we actually, you know, you want to save and you want to use for the bun. With lettuce, so I generally I will pick the leaves that are like generally the most pretty. Like usually the outside leaves are bigger, so you know you want that. But then sometimes you want to also like measure the lettuce in terms of like how big is the piece compared to your bun. Like, do you want to cut around it? Do you want to find like smaller pieces? I always say, like, even with lettuce, you do want to stack it. You do want to like create some texture around the bun as well. So that includes finding smaller pieces, larger pieces. That includes finding, you know, lettuce pieces that might be super green, or maybe some lettuce pieces that are a little bit more yellow, because it gives contrast to the bun. Like everything is about making the bun shine. Everything is about, you know, like giving it texture, giving it color, giving it life, when again, it is a 2D image. So how do you do that? Think about it. Like, how do you do that? How do you make people focus on something? And so that's always like on the mind. So I washed it first. I put it out onto, you know, like essentially a towel, just to make it dry. Like maybe later on I will spray it with some water later just to bring it to life, but as of right now, I want it to be some dry lettuce. So getting your lettuce that way is really good. There was cheese. It was actually funny story, not really funny. So there was cheddar cheese, but the cheddar was really crumbly. And again, I usually don't really deal with like cheese, but the cheddar was really crumbly, and so I didn't really know how it was going to melt. And this place actually had a heat gun, and I actually have not really worked with a heat gun before. I usually use my blowtorch. Usually, like, blowtorches are a little bit too strong for, you know, like if you're melting cheese, it might make the cheese bubble, or it might make it, you know, have color. And really what a heat gun is it's just it's like a more concentrated version of like a hair dryer. It does get hot, but what it will do is if you put like cheese on top of a patty, it will melt that cheese, but more gradually. Like, it's not going to make it bubble, it's not going to do anything. It just makes it look like, you know, as if it had just, you know, finished cooking and had naturally melted on it. And using it was quite easy. It was very much like a hair dryer. There was like a medium, like click, and then like click twice. It was high. What you need to worry about with the high is that it blows out a lot of air. It blows out a lot of hot air. So if you have like very light material and you crank it up to high, it might blow everything away. And so I did it on medium just to see how cheddar melts. And actually, for how crumbly the cheddar was, it actually melted quite well onto the burger bun. So that's kind of what I did. Okay, so then it was time to put it together, and actually like putting the actual item together takes a lot of time. And so we moved it into the studio where the photographer was, and I put it together there, whereas I almost feel like I could have put it together in the kitchen as well, because sometimes like those spaces, like they're quite small once you get into the studio, and so I had to put everything together onto a tray, which I didn't totally like. But so what I ended up doing first was I'll show you guys, hold on. So I knew that I wanted to put it on a dark tray like this, and actually the photographer had the same idea, and like a metal plate like this. They actually didn't have a metal plate there, which, you know, as I had said before, you have to be prepared for that. But they did have a pretty nice metal tray, so I ended up using that. With metal trays, I also knew that I wanted either like newspaper, Chinese newspaper, newspaper, or I wanted white parchment paper, because I think if it was brown parchment paper, which is actually a lot easier to find in the UK, brown parchment paper than white. I was really glad that they had it, because I couldn't find this one before, otherwise I would have brought it. I thought that this, like the white, would pair better against the brown, because otherwise it would have been brown on brown. Other things that you need to consider with parchment is, like, do you want to rip it or do you want to cut it? So sometimes, like, I have scissors that do like the little crinkle cuts, and that's really cute as well. But then sometimes, like, you just might want like a more, you know, rustic look. Do you want it to be straight like this, or do you want it to be crumbly like this? And crumbly is nice too, because crumbly gives it like a texture, gives it like a worn, like maybe somebody has already picked it up type of look. But, you know, like likewise, like straight, I think yesterday I kind of pretty much did straight. Maybe it was like a little bit crinkly, but I kept it straight. So it probably looked like it was out of a restaurant, which we'll talk about later. Just wanted to make sure that this was still on. Hold on, sorry. I'm always checking multiple cameras. Okay, so pretty much it, you know, I knew it was gonna look like this. I knew that the fries were gonna be to the side. And then I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do this because my sauce was just so horrible looking. This is also like very textured, healthy people mustard, so yeah, I think we're getting to the look that I'm sort of going for. Not really. It's still stuff takes time. Hold on. So what I ended up doing was I actually put everything in like a squirt bottle. Okay, so I pretty much had it in a squirt bottle like this. Yesterday's was clear. But the reason that I like squirt bottles for sauces is even if like the instructions say to, like just put a dollop on and smear the bottom, well, you can do the same thing with a squirt bottle. You just do it like that and then you rub it over with a spoon. But in addition, what a squirt bottle can do is like, let's say like you're on set and then finally you're like, oh, I want that sauce to like dribble down. This is an easier thing to control, like just squirt a little something. What was that? Okay. This is easier to control, so you can like just squirt a little something and then it'll drizzle down. Then just bringing like a big ramekin and like a spoon like this. So I highly recommend this for just any kind of sauce. Like even if you have to do a small amount, if you have to do a large amount, like that's totally fine. This sauce is so ugly. I don't know what else. I mean, like we put mayonnaise in there yesterday, so maybe that's why it has tempered it down. I did something like this where I only knew one side needed to be pretty, and that was going to be my chosen side. So I kind of like, I did it with a squirt bottle, but I kind of made some of it go off to the side of the bread. I mean, I think everybody knows what I'm saying. So that it would have that eaten look. Again, if everything looked super just like neat, I just think it looks like weird and it doesn't look that pretty. And so the next thing was whether the lettuce piece should go on the bottom or should go on the top. And of course, like looking through my numerous amounts of like burger photos, I liked the fact that the burger had a skirt to it, like the skirt being the lettuce on the bottom. I just think it looked nicer, but okay, so I pretty much had it in a squirt bottle like this. Yesterday's was clear. But the reason that I like squirt bottles for sauces is even if like the instructions say to, like just put a dollop on and smear the bottom, well, you can do the same thing with a squirt bottle. You just do it like that and then you rub it over with a spoon. But in addition, what a squirt bottle can do is like, let's say like you're on set and then finally you're like, oh, I want that sauce to like dribble down. This is an easier thing to control, like just squirt a little something. What was that? Okay. This is easier to control, so you can like just squirt a little something and then it'll drizzle down. Then just bringing like a big ramekin and like a spoon like this. So I highly recommend this for just any kind of sauce. Like even if you have to do a small amount, if you have to do a large amount, like that's totally fine. This sauce is so ugly. I don't know what else. I mean, like we put mayonnaise in there yesterday, so maybe that's why it has tempered it down. What I started off doing was I did something like this where I only knew one side needed to be pretty, and that was going to be my chosen side. So I kind of like, I did it with a squirt bottle, but I kind of made some of it go off to the side of the bread. I mean, I think everybody knows what I'm saying. So that it would have that eaten look. Again, if everything looked super just like neat, I just think it looks like weird and it doesn't look that pretty. And so the next thing was whether the lettuce piece should go on the bottom or should go on the top. And of course, like looking through my numerous amounts of like burger photos, I liked the fact that the burger had a skirt to it, like the skirt being the lettuce on the bottom. I just think it looked nicer, but then again, you could have multiple, like it could be above as well, and it might look fine. And so it was a matter with the lettuce. It was a matter of not just having like one piece. Like some places style it, and it just looks like there's like one piece of lettuce. And the thing is like you want to give it height, but you also want to give it like variance as well. And so like sometimes that might require two pieces, sometimes that might require, you know, just one, and you just fold it. Skewers are really useful for things when you have to build, because they're essentially like staplers that staple things into place. And it might require a little bit of like fidgeting, but it holds essentially like everything. It holds everything in place. Okay. You still need the patty, so I'm just gonna pretend like these. It's like the Thai Fun tofu dog, guys. It's really, really delicious. So we're gonna just put them down like that. And again, like looking at this, the hot dogs, they actually don't fill the entire patty, but that's okay, because like we're not, you know, we only need to fool the eye on one side of the thing. So yeah, I mean, like if I had to do a bunch of hot dogs, which I don't, but like I would probably, because knowing later that somebody is going to have to hold this burger in place, I want to make it as secure as possible. So this needs to be like a little housing build project, okay? So I have that, and then we had the bacon. And actually this bacon has a piece of hair in it. This bacon is a lot more pink than what I was working with, but because it's also like faux bacon, it doesn't crinkle when put under heat. So just keep in mind that. And what I ended up doing was like, you have to lay it so that it kind of looks like somebody naturally, like it's like somebody from Burger King just like put the bacon on. Like it needs to be neat. It's exactly the way that you'd want it, neat, but it needs to be lived in as well, right? So that's kind of like my thing. I don't know if this is kind of showing it. Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it's not. And then what I was thinking at the end was, I wasn't sure whether, actually I knew that I wanted to have the top, like drizzled with sauce as well, so that like everything was melting together. But at the same time, I wasn't 100% certain whether it would come out like neatly, like whether it would totally look good. So what I ended up doing was I went into the studio, I told the photographer, like, let's do it like this first with no sauce on the top, and then afterwards let's do one with, right? Because you can always, yeah, like you can always put on more, but you can't really take out, otherwise you're gonna have to like take a napkin and cut everything, or you know, like make another burger, which we had as well, but it would just take more time. So I'll show it to you guys here, because that's what I ended up doing anyways. But yeah, kind of while the shoot was going on, and the burger already looked like really good. It was quite delicious looking. We eventually took off the top. The photographer also agreed, and he was like, yeah, like let's try it with the sauce on top. Hold on. Oops. It actually wasn't this messy yesterday. Yesterday, it like everything went amazingly smoothly. So before I put this on, so what I ended up doing was actually like, hold on. This is the problem with stapling everything in place, is like now you have to kind of adjust it accordingly. Okay. So what I did with the burger was, oh, do we have Marmite? Okay. Yeah. So what I ended up doing with the burger is, again, usually I make like a soy sauce reduction so that it's nice and like thick and goopy, and then I can just brush it on, and it wouldn't necessarily turn the burger like black like soy sauce, but it would also be like a little bit clear, a little bit transparent, a little bit like shiny. What they did have in there was, and this was the styling assistant telling me this, was that they had Marmite. Yeah. So Marmite's just so thick, right? So of course I took a little bit of boiling water and then I mixed it with the Marmite. The Marmite it still seemed like a little bit brown, like a light brown. So we did have some soy sauce. So I put in a little bit of soy sauce in there, and then what I ended up doing was, I'll just mimic this for you guys with just oil, is I just brushed doing a horrible job for you guys. I just brushed the burger bit with the Marmite, and then I also brushed the bacon with some oil. And yes, like people will say, like sometimes like oil can get super oily looking, and that is what you have to be careful of. Like sometimes you might want to combine like oil with water and kind of dilute it that way. But I just felt like maybe like for a burger, like this is gonna work. Like this looks really good. And so, yeah, we did that, find the right top to the burger. And then, yeah, and then we kind of like closed it off this way. And see, I mean, this looks stupid because I have it's not like a bun. Hold on. This looks stupid because, ow. Because obviously I didn't use a patty, so I used like three little tofu hot dogs. But in the presence of light, so we'll talk about the light. What we ended up having were these like fries that I put with some coarse salt, your best friend, because it's just so like evident. Okay, and it's like a great way to add texture. Sometimes you don't want to do it, but like I just felt like for this one I kind of wanted to go all out. So coarse salt, some rosemary, and it just looked really good. And then of course you have to consider lights, right? Like in photography. So I don't know if how do we do this? I don't know if I want to go outside and show you guys, but basically, let's say that you guys are the camera. So on the back, diagonally to one side of the main side of the burger, there was a backlight, and it was a continuous light. So meaning it was always on. This wasn't like a flashing light. So there was a continuous light that I would say was pretty tungsten. It was pretty warm. Okay, because that's the vibe that the photographer like thought and really wanted. So that backlight helps helps this burger pop from the background. Because sometimes if you're just taking it with one light, you know, directly against the burger, and then you have the background, suddenly like everything merges. But when you put a backlight to something, it creates separation for the bun. So there was a continuous warm backlight, and then from the same side was where the flash was. And I'll link to our flash video that we have, that one flash video that I made that actually a lot of people like. If you guys know photography, flash is going to be a lot stronger. So flash was a majority of what was really going to light this, really was going to be what kind of gave like the highlights that I put in, like some extra oomph as well. So yeah, basically everything was on the same side. They had the, I think it was like a Canon 100 millimeter 2.8 nice L lens is really the preferred lens of photographers, is that 100 millimeter, because you can really like get up in there, you can really see a lot of detail. And they had it, of course, on this amazing, like it wasn't even, it was like you know, like one of those it looks like a football stand, like a football pole. What do you call that? It's not a tripod, but like they mounted it on this actual thing. And I always wanted one for the house, but I can't afford it. And also it's a little bit big for the house. And then with the attention shot, I had the kitchen assistant hold up the bun because I wanted to, like, I guess I could have done it as well, but I wanted to see how everything was falling, how everything was looking, so that I could do the touch-ups, because you're essentially like this is actually like essentially the celebrity, and then I am like the makeup artist for the celebrity is kind of what it is. So we did that. We played around with like drizzling a little bit more sauce on the bottom. I played around with like, you know, like kind of like taking a bite out of a French fry, dipping it into ketchup, and then like leaving that on the bottom so that it really looked like it was a very like lived in shot. So yeah, but that was pretty much it. Like it went by really quickly. I thought that it just came out so well. Like I was so happy like when I saw both shots, like the tension shot, the shot by itself. I had like a glass of like cola in the back because I really like adding drinks to things, and it just looked like it was like a Burger King ad, which it's not a bad thing. It like looked really good. Like it was very rustic. It had, not in a bad way, but like just like that delicious. And so, even though I think that the day turned out really well, for me, like my biggest critique, and this has happened like a couple times for me as well, is like it may have looked too good in a style, because the style was also, I think the style was also a little bit industrial looking. And anytime when you work for somebody, whether it be shooting photos for them or like, you know, writing for them, you have to match their voice, right? And I did look through their voice, like I did try to, but sometimes I can't help like fixing every minute detail. And the thing is, like this place, like it makes meals for families, so you are supposed to, you know, like style it in a way where people can remake it, have it be kind of very I think like inviting and like, you know, very friendly, and I think that this one in some ways kind of feels like it was on a pedestal, and it looked really good, but I don't think like necessarily it would look like what a family would make. And so I think that would be a critique for myself. But at the same time, like it's really hard to not do your best at something, like especially at something like an interview where like you know that this is going to make it look 10 times better. And yeah, and I don't really, sometimes like there's like a balance between like, okay, like what you do and like what it could be. I'm not sure, like this is a really bad thing, but like I think, you know, like ask a lot of questions, and like I don't know, like for me, I always want to just do it the way that I like to do it, and I want it to look perfect, and it's really hard for me to like step it down, which is I don't know, it's like good and bad. So yeah, so that is it for me. I hope you guys, like if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. The first bit of the interview, like I'll tell you, like the part one of the interview was just basically like a normal interview over like Zoom, over like a call of just like, you know, talking about your work experience, talking about things that you've done, you know, any like hardships, like just the normal stuff. And then, and I think usually that's kind of, you know, like for at least bigger food styling places, they'll probably start off with that, and then kind of pick and choose from there, and then from there to get people in to show, you know, like what they can actually do. So yeah, like let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll keep you guys updated on, yeah, like the job, I guess. Yeah, so that's it for me. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys all again next time. All right, bye.
Casey, I don't wanna fall in love. Thought I had the time, but it's just not enough. Oh, I don't tend to give my trust like that. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I stay adamant with the same things, but I still hit her up in my daydreams. When I stop listening to my conscience.